So you're trying to study, but you're constantly getting distracted. If this is you, I'm going to assume there are three main things that are distracting you. First, your environment. Second, your own thoughts. And third, your phone and other electronics. I believe that if we can take control of these three things, we can make your study sessions much more effective and have you get more done in less time. Now, as I said, the first problem is your environment. And this could be related to one of two things. First of all, where you're actually studying, and second, the people you're studying with. The main thing to think about when wondering where should I study is where can I actually focus and where is my attention not being pulled away by other sources. So for example, if I want to study at a coffee shop, is it a nice calm environment where I can focus on my work? Or is it bustling, exciting? Are the conversations going on around me? Is it perhaps a campus cafe with tons of people walking in and out and constantly grabbing my attention? Even if it's a location that you enjoy being in, you might have to ask yourself the question of, are the distractions in this area worth the effects they're going to have on my studies? And if not, it's a good idea to think of somewhere else to study. So if there's a cafe I really enjoy studying at, but I find that whenever somebody walks in, I just find myself a little bit distracted and I just look in their direction for just a moment, just getting distracted from my studies. If I find that this is detrimental enough for my studies, it may be worth considering moving to another coffee shop or maybe another location in my neighborhood or around campus that I can actually focus. And now another thing to think about is, who are the people I'm studying with? And are they adding to my study sessions or taking away from them? So are these people distracting me and making the work I do take more time? Or are they encouraging me to work harder on my studies? And it can really go either way. Sometimes you study with a group and they're super locked in and focused and it makes you want to work just that much harder. On the other hand, sometimes if you have really distracting friends and you know that they're really distracting and that you can't get good quality work done around them, you may just have to bite the bullet and say, you know what, I'm busy tonight, I can't really meet up, I have to go solo tonight. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you really have to focus, it's okay to go solo or not study with specific people. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, the second thing that you can also get distracted by is your own thoughts. I know a lot of people where they'll study and they realize that they're just rereading the same paragraphs over and over again because they're getting in their head, they're getting distracted by other things that are either going on in their day or just thoughts that are sidetracking them. And I think the main remedy for this is essentially just finding ways to make your attention span better. And I think really the best way to do this is meditation, which is something a lot of people are opposed to because they see meditation as sort of this esoteric, religious experience that may not really be congruent with whatever they believe in. But meditation can really be used by anybody. I'm not religious. I've personally used it in the past to increase my attention span and just increase my mindfulness and realize when my attention is being drawn away from my studies and just reeling it back in. The essentials of meditation that you can use to make you better at studying is essentially just the practice of focusing on one thing, whether this be a point in a room or just your breath. And whenever you notice that your attention is being pulled away or that you're having thoughts unrelated to the task at hand, just gently bringing your attention back into the present moment and doing this for say 5-10 minutes. It can really have amazing effects on your ability to focus on one thing and draw your attention back when you're getting distracted. And now the third distraction that I think a lot of us are susceptible to is just our phone and other electronics. So we're studying and a notification goes off and we find ourselves down a rabbit hole of just checking our phone, checking different apps, maybe scrolling social media, and it can just become very distracting and we can realize that we wasted a ton of time when we were trying to focus on one task related to our studies. Now, a lot of people on the internet are going to suggest that you just use blockers on your iPhone, get an app that blocks Instagram so you just can't use it. I'm a bit opposed to this idea because I think that if you block one app, you're just going to figure out another app to replace it with. So if I block Instagram, for example, I might find myself just on YouTube Shorts and not even realize that I'm still being unproductive even with certain apps blocked. So what I would say instead is to make it a point to build the discipline to have these apps on your phone and not use them. So actively keep these social media apps that might distract you on your phone, look at them and say, today I'm gonna make a conscious effort to not use these apps. And if I do go on them a couple times, that's okay. It's not like the day was a failure. But as long as I'm making it a point to progressively just be more mindful of when I'm using these apps and making sure I'm not using them during my study sessions, I think this will do a whole lot more for increasing your attention span, making you better at focusing on your work, as opposed to just saying, I'm gonna download a blocker and I can't use Instagram. and then getting distracted by TikTok 10 seconds later. And then another thing you've probably heard a ton of times is that obviously you want your phone on silent when you're studying. You should not have your notifications on, because every time you get a notification on your phone, you're going to be distracted just the tiniest bit from your studies, just wondering what the notification is. Even if you're not checking it, you're still having your attention drawn away from that sound. So have your notifications off at the very, very least. And one last point is that when it comes to technology, you have to stop convincing yourself that you're just multitasking while you're studying. The human brain was not made for multitasking. You can listen to some music while you're working, but really anything beyond that is just going to be pulling your attention away. You should not be watching reruns of TV shows while you study. You're not multitasking. Your brain is switching back and forth from task to task. So if you're doing a reading with maybe some Seinfeld in the background, the Seinfeld is not just going into your brain subtly in the background. You're constantly switching from looking at the TV to looking back at your work and then looking at the TV again. Your brain cannot focus on two things at once, so it's constantly flip-flopping. So if you're listening to TV or a podcast in the background of your studies, just know that your attention is going to be pulled away from your studies repeatedly. And if you don't want this to happen, I would say at the very most, listen to some music without lyrics, but don't go further than this if you're trying to have an actual productive study session. Now, I hope you guys can find these tips useful, and I hope they can improve your study sessions at least a little bit. Now, if you're not subscribed, then this is probably the last time I'll see you, so thank you so much for watching. If you are subscribed, I really appreciate it. There's going to be a whole lot more videos like this soon, so stay tuned. But until then, I'll see you guys.